Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we've been working on our colony on Duna, and we do have a couple more components that we need to deliver to it. And I feel like that's mostly the next step right now, other than the various Kraken taming that obviously needs to happen periodically. But let's take a look at what our demo colony here looks like, and keep in mind this doesn't have the launch pad on it. We're going to put a launch pad on here eventually, but for now, we don't have that. So we just put up the smelter module, although that is in this orientation out here right now, and we kind of can't move it because our wheels crackened out. We could put wheels back on it, reinstall them, and move it around that way. It would be a lot of work. I'm probably just going to decree that it goes here now. So to that end, let's actually just move it here. So we can just rotate it, not like that. Not like that either. Yeah, like that. So at this point, it is here, right? So that's where it is right now, and that's fine. That's not a concern. That's absolutely A-okay. I'll save this so that we have that for our reference. Now, we know that we require additional power. And that might be a problem. If we have an additional power node right here, which would be where I would look to put an additional power node, is that going to interfere with our radiators? Probably is my assessment. Actually, it's kind of okay. It will definitely interfere with some radiators. Insofar as, well, we're not going to have like collisions, but we're not going to produce quite as much energy as we would have liked. So that's definitely something to note, but I don't want to bring this up there ourselves. I want to build this at the location, ideally, unless we run into major Krakens, but you know, I took off one too many docking ports there. Let's undo that, and let's have this be like this. Okay. And ultimately, this doesn't need to be docked together up here. We can address that later on. So what modules do we still need to bring out? Well, we need to bring this storage module, and we need to bring this Kerbal storage module. So both of those would need to happen, and for the time being, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as the storage module. There we go. We'll save that, and that will be absolutely fine. Now what we need to do is we need to reroute this. I'm going to route it to about here, and then we're going to just pop off all of this. There we go. And that looks good. So now what we need to do, of course, is we need to make our delivery system for this. And that's actually not too bad. Let's look at our center of mass here. Okay. So, as before, we're going to do this with docking ports to give us attachment nodes in the correct orientation. So we need to be looking at this about like that, and this docking node should go about there. And then we need a docking node on the bottom that is in about the same orientation. So that's going to end up going about there. Now we can't directly put the camera underneath that the way we can up here to line it up nicely, but that should be probably close enough. So now we're going to need a sky crane, of course, as we have been doing. So we're going to open in anything with a sky crane. The core module will do. So that looks good. And then I want to just attach this somewhere. Can we not attach it? It doesn't want to attach. Okay. So we can try a different module. We've been able to attach these, and the problem is just the routing, right? But let's go ahead and merge this, and we should be able to attach that. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll attach it like this, and then we will detach the sky crane, and then all of the rest of this needs to go. There we go. We don't need that. The sky crane, however, that can go right there. And that kind of works for now. We'll see if we have any stability issues with that. Okay, now we're going to make our delivery system, which, as usual, we've actually got a little bit more space here, so that's going to work pretty well. No, not you. Is this going to take us up to 2.5? Let's see here. Rockamax size? Yeah, Rockamax size. Perfect. Okay, so this is going to be very, very similar to what we've been building up until this point. We know basically how these work, and I want to move through this fairly quickly. My main concern... Oh, this is not quite at the angling I want. There. My main concern here is with the life support. I'm not sure that that's going to work correctly. We know that we have some potential issues with our... Just thinking about how I want to do struts here. We know that we're going to have some potential issues with our setup on various... How do I want to strut this? About like that, I guess? We're probably going to have a joint weakness here. Also, we need another docking port here. Okay, that would help. Okay, as I was saying, we know we're going to have some issues with our power generation and potentially our food generation. So we're probably going to have to pop over there and do a lot of our warping there, which may create Krakens. And that's problematic. We would like to not have Krakens. Thank you very much. That would be ideal. So at this point, our main issue is that we need to run our fuel lines in a specific pattern. So I'm going to run the fuel line like that, and then the fuel line like this. And then the fuel lines here are going to run in like that and like that. But now our issue is that we need to split these decouplers out. So we need to have this decoupler fire first. Can I select just this one? No? Okay, fine. We'll just have to do this in bicoupling. So something like this instead. Okay, so that'll be fine. We'll put that there for now, and then we'll put this there for now. Okay, so this fuel setup is not exactly the way we want it. We can just run that in like that, and then that's in as well. Okay, that fuel setup looks correct. And then the struts can go like that. Sure, that looks good. So now we're going to need to have these tanks be the ones that detach first. So it'll be something like that. This fuel line would go, or this engine rather, would go about here. These would be all together. That looks good. And then that's all fine. Yes. Okay. So something along the lines of that. Then we'll need a decoupler here. This will be a TD25 decoupler. Something like this. And then, of course, we need our ascent stage. So let's move this thing right on up. And let's put in a bit of an ascent stage here. So this is going to, of course, be big orange tanks for now. I'm going to do 2 of them. And then I like the stack mechanism that we had before. I mean, it's very awkward, but it works pretty well, all things considered. So let's have something like this. And then we're going to have mainsails here. Or a singular mainsail, actually. And that's not strong enough to lift this. We already know that for an absolute fact. 0.05, that's the poodle. Okay. This is definitely not set up the way it should be. So the mainsail should go out here like this. Yeah, that's the correct staging. Okay, so in this stage, we've got 0.65. That's more like it. So I'm going to grab some 32s, and we're going to just stack these in right here. There we go. We're going to make them be orange. They're part of our initial stage here. For some reason, I've decreed that our initial stage is always orange, if we can. I don't know why, but here we are. So we're going to run this in here, but we're also going to need to do that again because we're in bilateral symmetry here, and we're going to need to do that. Okay. Now, we know that we're going to have some potential strut issues here, and we will test those. But for now, this looks good. We're going to need TD25 decouplers here. There and there. Although we might add more fuel into that, we will see. And then let's put in some Clydesdales here. And some Clydesdales here. What's that looking like lengthwise? We can add more length to this center core. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take another X16 and then probably a 32. So let's grab this. Actually, that means that we could have in total an extra 64 here. That might give us some thrust to weight issues. This is a lot. but that is what that would work out as. So we can do this, and we can do this, and then we can do this. Yeah, that works out pretty well. And then here, I would like to put in one small amount of extra fuel. This is going to be a lot of thrust to weight issues. We'll see what that feels like, but we just need a little bit more distance over on this side. So something like that. And then these guys can attach here and here. Of course, we'll need struts, and that's very, very expected. So we'll have some struts here, like that. And then we'll need struts from here to here as well. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to run struts like this and like this. And then let's run some interior struts as well. So one here and one here. Something like that. So at this point, fuel is absolutely a concern. Our thrust to weight here is not exactly where we want it to be. So this is going to go here. As far as staging goes, these are going to need to be in separate staging events. And we're going to need some staging here as well. So we need a TD25 decoupler here. So that's going to be right there. And actually, I kind of just want to remove that and hope that we time it correctly. That's the better way to handle this. So I'm just going to harvest this guy. There we go. And then we'll put in the TD25 decoupler. We'll put in the fuel tanks. And we'll put in this guy. There we go. Okay, how's our struts? Not great is the answer. So we're going to need to redo these struts down here. That's fine. Those are quasi-connected, but to be honest, I want this to be going in here, and then this strut is going to be connected here, like that. So our exterior struts should be good, and then all we need now is our interior struts there. Okay, so something along the lines of that. Now our fuel lines need to be rerun, which is absolutely acceptable. There we go. That should do the trick there. We're definitely going to have some strut issues, and our thrust to weight here is only 1.52. So that is understood. I'm concerned about our fuel burn rate here. I'm very concerned about our fuel burn rate here. We're very overbuilt, except for in the initial stages. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. But I think our best bet at this point is to put this out on the pad, but we're going to need our Separatrons. So let's get ourselves some Separatrons going here, and that's fine. I want it to be rotated like this. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. And then over on this side, 1, 2, 3, and 4, like that. I want these to go, I want them to go more on the top, don't I? Yeah. I want more clearance on the top. So we want this out over here then. And I want to move this guy up here. There we go. So that'll push it out more up top and less on the bottom, giving us a bit of a Korolev cross. So that's the idea there. We're going to do the same thing over here. So 1, 2, 3, and this goes basically right here, 4. And then over on this side, rotate it around, 1, 2, 3, and 4. About like that. Okay, so all of these Separatrons are going to fire. This poodle should not be here. I'm going to move the poodle up here for now. We need to check staging. Staging is going to be a major concern at this moment. So let's see here. These two are in this stage. So I'm going to move them down. And then all of these Separatrons should be in this stage. Should have just moved them into stage 5, but it's okay. Okay, so something along the lines of that. Let's get rid of stage 5. So, at this point, we launch and we fire our SRBs and we fire our mainsail. Then we have all of our Separatrons fire and these two stacks detach. Then this decoupler detaches and the poodle fires. Then we have these two these two tanks drop, and then we have these two tanks drop, and then we have our sky crane. And this would have to be manually detached, which is fine. So that's all absolutely a-okay. We do need some power on this, so I'm going to do retractable 1x6s. They're going to go in right about there. And then we need some communications on this as well. And I want to upgrade this from a Probodobodyne Octo 2 up to a remote guidance unit. So that's going to end up being... That's too big? This size. Okay, so something about like that. I want to disable crossfeed here, because we don't want this fuel being drained down over here. That'll be fine. And then we need communications on this. So I'll just put that right over here for now. That'll do. So that seems fine. Now the question is, how's our stability going to look? So let's go ahead and put this out on the pad, and we will find out. Staging should be good. We should have plenty of thrust to weight as long as we get to orbit. Getting to orbit is my major concern at this moment. We shall see if this thing gets to orbit. And the other concern is just how spaghetti is it? It'll be a little spaghetti, I think. And we'll need to run some pretty major simulations there. It'll be spaghetti later on as well. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So we're going to put this into surface up as soon as it's loaded. Okay, we immediately see there's issues right up here with this docking port. That is not surprising. That is not at all surprising. So let's go ahead and pull this right on back to vehicle assembly. The other docking port looks relatively stable. There's not a lot of mass up here, and it's held by these two, but this is not joined together very well as of right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strut this together. I'm going to do a strut from the center here, and I want this to be symmetrical if we can do it. Center to here. I want it to be right in that core. Did that actually work for the symmetry? It did not. Okay, that's fine. So we'll just turn off the symmetry and we'll put in an additional strut there and take that to the center core. That will help matters, but I don't think it's a solution. So now I'm going to do this in bilateral symmetry. We're just going to strut it like that. That should help significantly. I'm also interested in running struts from here to here, like that. Now, these are the tanks that are going to drop off first. We may want to change that, actually. We may want to flip the order of this. So that would mean removing this fuel duct and putting it like this, and then removing this fuel duct and putting it like this. So that now flows like that, and then flows like that. So now these tanks are later to drop than these tanks. Just because of the way the struts are set up, I feel like that works a lot better. Okay, let's save that. Let's put that out on the pad. Let's see how wiggly it is. Let's see what our thrust to weights look like, and let's see if we get this thing to orbit. It'd be remarkable if we got it to orbit right away. Do we want to just have MechJeb do the launch, or do we want to do a major stress test here? I think that the stress tests are fun, myself. They're obviously not a good way to get to orbit, but they do reveal weaknesses in the design. So I think we're going to go ahead and do a stress test here. So that means we're going to go straight up until we get to about 10 or 20 kilometers in apoapsis, and then we're going to just smack it over to the horizon. That's not a good way to get to orbit, but it does reveal weaknesses. That looked much better right there. So let's go ahead and throttle this off. Let's put ourselves in surface up, and let's see how this goes. So we're off the pad. We're slightly below 1.5 thrust to weight to launch this. That's understood. We need to check on fuel timings. So fuel here compared with our SRB fuels, yeah, it's not great. We could put in an additional decoupler here and then just jettison these tanks later. That is an option. But obviously right now, the timing here is not ideal. Not ideal at all. And when these SRBs burn out, our thrust to weight is going to be very low. That's the major concern at this moment. We'll see how much vertical speed we build up here. But we're going to have to carry this weight or throw that fuel away. Those are our options. Well, let's pivot ourselves over to horizontal velocity up here in just a moment. Our apoapsis is almost to 10 kilometers. So let's see how this aerodynamics feels. Okay, this is not exactly the direction we wanted to go, but it's fine. I'm assuming we're going to keep tipping at the horizon. No. Aerodynamics are fine. Wow. This is not the direction we want to go. And as we can see, our liquid fuel drain is very bad. But that's fine. For the moment, my main concern now is I want to see, once we get back up to up, obviously this is not going to orbit. And obviously this whole thing has been a simulation, right? This was never intended to not be a simulation. We're actually struggling to make our way to up right now. That's interesting. That's very interesting. But aerodynamics seem fine. Stability seems fine too. What's our thrust to weight going to be once our SRBs turn off here, though? 3, 2, 1, 0. 0.4. Oh, that's bad. And we also lose attitude a little bit, but I don't expect that to be a major issue going forward. So, yeah, we can see time to apoapsis is going down at this moment, and it's going down way too early. So our weight is an issue at this point. Now, if we didn't carry the SRBs, how much better would that get? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure what the dry mass of those SRBs is. It would be better, but I'm not going to claim it'd be a lot better. I think we could get to orbit if we did that, though. We're about to have these tanks clean out here. Obviously, our ascent profile was awful, right? There's no doubt about that. We've got about 38 seconds of burn time here. I'm just going to continue to burn like this. We're not counteracting gravity at this point, but we are pushing that apoapsis up a little bit higher. And the real question is, what's our thrust to weight going to be once we jettison these side components, and how are they going to do on the jettisoning? We shall see. So this is going to be obviously not achieving space at this point. Aerodynamics and the stability are absolutely a pass on this flight. So this rocket is definitely stable. There's no problem with it there. So we've got about 4 seconds of burn time left here. Let's see what happens on this staging. Good clean separation. 0.64 thrust to weight is not good. But we knew that. We knew that that was very likely going to be a thing. And the stability issue here that we're seeing is not up here. The stability is we need more stability in this joint right here. So we need to connect from like here to here, which is absolutely something that we can do. And let's pull this back and we'll do a more real flight here, but it is almost time to put a cut in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I want to get these struts in first before I forget for next episode. So let's get those in, and let's just put in bilateral symmetry. And I just want to run a strut from here to here. And then we're going to need to do the same thing over on this side. So from here to here. And then I'm going to pop these guys off again. And I'm going to put in a TD25 decoupler right here because this timing is just so far off that we, if I can select it correctly, that we need this to obviously go in like this. This guy actually needs to attach here, and then this one needs to attach on this side. Yes. Okay, so struts are not correctly set up at this time. That's okay. We'll get those done. Everything else looks good there. Up over this way, I do want to duplicate these separatrons and put them over here and over here, just to give us a little bit of separation there. And that should be relatively good. So these decouplers are going to be here, like this. And then we're going to need to get the separatrons slightly separated. So that's going to be, fun. So these are fine. And yeah, starts about here. So we can grab here. That's good. These are fine. These ones should be fine. Yes. Yes. Good. Should be good. Okay. No problem. Good. Yes. And no. Okay, so now these separatrons should be correctly set up. We know stability should be fine, and once we have this in here, that should be fine on the stability as well. And we can do a more realistic ascent trajectory and ditch these much more quickly. So that should be absolutely fine. These separatrons up here may not be necessary, but it's okay. So we'll continue to carry less weight, and we'll not have that horizontal pivot in this next test, so that'll be fine. But it is time to put that cut in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Rornaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.